Well, as parenting moves further into the digital age, how far would you go to keep your children safe? Smartwatches now allow parents to track their kids' movements by setting up geo-fences, a zone around a school or home, for example, where parents are sent an alert if their child moves outside of it. Parents can also be alerted if the device is removed, but it goes even further. Apps you can secretly install on phones that let mums and dads spy on children's conversations and searches, or even effectively tap phones by remotely activating the microphone. So where does protecting your child cross the line? Here to help us answer this is Hayley Ellison from HHG Legal Group. Hayley, hello to you.
Hello.
First, what are some of the immediate legal implications for parents and children?
Well, effectively, under the West Australian legislation, we have the Surveillance Devices Act, and that regulates the use of surveillance devices as well as the communication and publication of information obtained through the use of these devices. Essentially, under this Act, unless you have implied or expressed consent, you can't actually record anyone through any surveillance device, whether that be videoing somebody, recording a conversation, or tracking somebody. But there is a bit of a grey area when it comes to children, as there's an argument that children potentially can't legally provide informed consent. Therefore, there's a few different views in relation to whether or not this would be classed as illegal, essentially.
Does it make a difference at all who owns the device, whether the child or the parent has bought it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. All right, and what about in cases where the child is unaware they're being monitored, especially when you're talking about private conversations?
Well, that opens up a lot of difficulties because, for instance, as I'm a family lawyer, there's a lot of difficulties with it in proceedings where parents will actually set the child's phone to automatically record when the other parent calls, for instance, so they can hear the content of that conversation and monitor it, which is obviously a problem because it's illegal. And then when you consider actually parents monitoring children's conversations, there's also the issue of the fact that these children will be speaking to other people, not just other children, perhaps other adults, about other sensitive issues. So there's more consideration that needs to be given to this as to whether they then consent and whether that's the right thing to be doing.
Do you think the child's age should make a difference as they move into their teens?
Absolutely, because I guess when you consider the question of consent, when you think about it, when you compare, say, a 5-year-old to a 15-year-old, a 15-year-old's able to understand the implications of providing consent and the issues that they have in relation to privacy far more than a 5-year-old. And also when you think in terms of reality, back when we were younger and there weren't issues with social media and so much use of technology, would a parent consider an infringement of a child's rights to go into their room and read their diary? They would, and they just wouldn't do that. So it's something which needs to be considered when you think about reading all your child's personal messages, because effectively these days it's almost the equivalent.
It does sound pretty legally dangerous. What is your advice to parents what can they do, what lengths can they go to keep them safe?
Well, my advice to parents is to make sure that you really focus on communicating with your child. Above all, that's the most important thing. Communication and in terms of having open lines where your child can speak to you is far more valuable than going through and monitoring their internet use or their conversations, because let's face it, children are far quicker and smarter than us in technology. So even though we might think we uncover everything, there'll still be some things that we're missing.
Yes, they're going to outgrow us.
Definitely.
Quickly. All right, Hayley Ellison, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.